Ever wonder how one man could almost bring down an entire financial system and walk away, at least for a while, with billions? Today, we're diving deep into the story of Charles Keating, the charismatic but ruthless figure at the heart of one of America's biggest financial disasters, the savings and loan scandal. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a jaw-dropping tale of greed, power, and deception that cost taxpayers over $100 billion. So, who was Charles Keating? He started as a lawyer and anti-pornography crusader, building a reputation as a moral family man. But behind this squeaky clean image was a ferocious ambition. In the early 1980s, the US government deregulated the savings and loan industry, or S&Ls. These were once sleepy, local institutions that mainly gave out home loans. The new rules, however, turned them into financial Wild West saloons, allowing them to make much riskier investments. This was the opportunity Keating had been waiting for. In 1984, he took control of a small, struggling S&L called Lincoln Savings and Loan. He moved its headquarters from a quiet suburb to a flashy office in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's when things really took off. Keating wasn't interested in boring home mortgages. He transformed Lincoln into his personal piggy bank, using depositors' money insured by the US government to gamble on higher-risk junk bonds, speculative real estate deals, and lavish projects like the opulent Phoenician resort in Scottsdale. This place was the definition of excess, with marble from Italy and gold leaf on the ceilings. It was a monument to Keating's ego, built with other people's money. To fund these risky ventures, Lincoln needed a constant flow of cash. So, they started aggressively selling something called subordinated debentures, or junk bonds, right in their own bank lobbies. Here's where it gets truly predatory. They targeted elderly customers, people who had trusted Lincoln with their life savings for decades. Bank employees were pressured to sell these bonds, often misrepresenting them as safe, government-insured certificates of deposit, or CDs. They weren't. They were incredibly risky investments. If Lincoln went under, the bondholders would be last in line to get their money back, if they got anything at all. Imagine your grandmother walking into her trusted local bank to renew a CD, and being talked into putting her entire nest egg into what she thinks is a safe investment, only to find out it was a higher-risk gamble. Thousands of people, mostly seniors, lost everything. We're talking about over 23,000 bondholders who were left with worthless paper. As you can imagine, regulators started getting suspicious. Lincoln's books looked too good to be true, because they were. They were using creative and fraudulent accounting to hide massive losses and make the institution look profitable. When examiners from the Federal Home Loan Bank Board tried to step in, Keating didn't just cooperate. He fought back hard. This brings us to one of the most infamous parts of the story, the Keating Five. Charles Keating was a master of influence peddling. He had donated over $1 million to the political campaigns of 5 U.S. senators: Alan Cranston, Dennis DeConcini, John Glenn, John McCain, and Donald Regal. When regulators were closing in on Lincoln in 1987, Keating called in his favors. The 5 senators met with Edwin Gray, the head of the bank board, in a series of meetings. They pressured Gray to back off the investigation into Lincoln. This was a shocking display of political interference. Here were powerful lawmakers seemingly protecting a failing institution at the expense of taxpayers and depositors. The regulators were essentially told to stand down, and this delay cost an extra $2 billion as Lincoln continued its reckless spiral. But you can't defy gravity forever. By 1989, the House of Cards collapsed. The federal government was forced to seize Lincoln's savings and loan. The cleanup was staggering. It became the most expensive S&L failure in history, costing taxpayers over $3 billion for this one institution alone. The entire S&L crisis, which Lincoln was a major part of, ended up costing the nation more than $120 billion. The fallout was immense. The Keating Five faced a lengthy Senate Ethics Committee investigation. While they were criticized for poor judgment, only one, Senator Cranston, was formally reprimanded for his actions. For Keating, the legal battles were just beginning. He faced a barrage of state and federal charges for fraud and racketeering. In 1991, he was convicted in California on 17 counts of securities fraud. He was sentenced to 10 years. But the conviction was later overturned on a technicality, a judge's faulty instruction to the jury. Then, in 1993, he was convicted on federal charges of fraud and racketeering and sentenced to over 12 years. Again, this conviction was also overturned. It's a frustrating part of the story. After all the damage, all the lives ruined, it seemed like he might get away with it. Finally, in 1999, facing another trial, Keating pleaded guilty to 4 counts of wire and bankruptcy fraud. He had already served about 4.5 years in prison, and as part of the plea deal, he was sentenced to time served. He never spent another day in jail for his crimes. Charles Keating passed away in 2014, but his legacy is a powerful and cautionary tale. It shows what can happen when deregulation is combined with a lack of oversight and immense personal greed. It's a story about the failure of checks and balances, where political influence was used to protect financial wrongdoing. It highlights the human cost of white-collar crime, reminding us that the victims weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. They were real people who lost their security and their dreams. The Keating scandal led to significant reforms, including the creation of new regulatory bodies and stricter rules for the financial industry. But the cycle of boom, bust, and bailout seems to be a recurring theme in our financial history. The story of Charles Keating is a stark reminder that we must always remain vigilant against the kind of greed that can put our entire economic system at risk. What do you think? Is this kind of scandal bound to happen again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this story as fascinating and infuriating as I did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more deep dives into history's biggest events. See you next time.